This is the new LG Gram Superslim, and it's literally the thinnest and lightest Windows laptop I've ever used. And chances are, if you click this, you're really interested in compact yet powerful tech. The thing is, tech has gotten wildly impressive over time, and this laptop is a spectacular mix of power and productivity for both students and professionals. With a beautiful OLED display, Intel's new i7 Evo chipset, and weighing in at just about 2 pounds, this might just be what you're after. So today in this video, I'll talk about specs, everyday use, battery, and although it's not meant for it, I'll definitely be diving into gaming. I'm not big into benchmarks or any of that, but simply how this actually performs day to day. And thanks to LG for sending this out my way for review. This is my initial review, and I'll definitely have a longer term review in a couple weeks. But off the bat, getting this thing in hand, it's simply wild how light and thin it is. And coming in at just over 2 pounds or 990 grams, this laptop really is super lightweight. And despite that weight, I was surprised to find out it's actually still made of metal. The body's made of a magnesium aluminum alloy, which provides a good mix of durability and weight. Despite being metal though, it does sort of feel like plastic. Just know it's metal. And coming in at 10.9mm thick at its thinnest point, this easily fits into just about any bag or laptop sleeve. And to test out the chassis, pressing into it, there is just a little bit of flex. And the model I have is the Neptune Blue variant, which doesn't actually hold as many fingerprints as I thought it would, despite still being metal. And in terms of size, this is the 15.6-inch variant. On the top end, you do have this tiny Gram branding, and I appreciate it's actually minimal and sleek. On the underside, you've got the 4 rubber feet so it doesn't move around, alongside the dual speaker setup and this vent for heat dissipation. And if you're wondering if it passes the one finger test, it definitely does. I don't know why I care so much about this, but it is something I really look forward to when it comes to laptops. I will say the hinge is rather wobbly once opened. Not sure if that'll bug you or not. I can only really see it being a problem for me if I'm walking around with this open while I'm on a call. Now in terms of ports, you have 4 total. You have 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 1 Type-C for power delivery, as well as a headphone jack. The Thunderbolt ports are found on both the left and right side of the chassis, which is actually totally underrated, especially if you're going to be docking this in a setup. I would have totally loved to see an HDMI port on here, but that would have taken away from the compact design of this, and the goal here is to have the ultimate thin and light laptop. And overall, this is easily one of the best laptops if you're on the go, especially for students and professionals. It looks sleek, minimal, and the portability is simply unmatched. Now, outside of the size and portability, the star of the show for me comes down to the 15.6-inch OLED display. Now, over the last year, I've been absolutely spoiled by having OLED displays, from my smartphone to my OLED TV to my gaming monitors. And the only thing I've never really had is an OLED display on my laptop, that is until now. The literal blacks and vibrant colors are simply hard to beat on an OLED display. All the while, this display does get well and bright with a peak brightness of 500 nits with HDR turned on. And if you do care about that HDR goodness on here, the display will give you a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio alongside 100% coverage of the DCI P3 color gamut. I've been huge into rewatching the Dragon Ball Super movies recently, and I can easily say anything animated on here will look absolutely incredible. I know a lot of people would prefer a glossy display, but LG does have their AGLR coating on here, which is the anti-glare low reflective coating. Despite being a matte coating, it's still maintaining a beautiful image. I've got this powerful light blasting the display, and it's still not really washed out. But coming down to the specs and performance, my unit is rocking the Intel Evo i7 1360p chipset with 32 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage, although you can get up to 2 terabytes if you need it. In terms of graphics, you do have the integrated Intel Xe chipset on here, which doesn't really mean you're going to be doing any sort of video editing or direct gaming, but that's not really what it's made for anyways. With that being said, that absolutely will not stop me from gaming on here with Xbox Game Pass, since it's quite literally amazing on a laptop like this, utilizing their cloud gaming features. And of course, integrated graphics will not get you this, but game streaming will. Do not sleep on cloud gaming, especially if you have an OLED display like this. You got to make good use of it. Not to mention the gaming overlay Windows has integrated is actually pretty badass when it comes to functionality, but if you are absolutely dead set on gaming directly on here, you're going to need to keep it to the less demanding titles. For myself, sometimes that just means playing a simple cozy game like Unpacking. It's really chill and it's just nice to relax and game. Outside of all of that, the primary focus of this laptop is definitely going to be for professional and student work alongside entertainment. For everyday things like browsing the web, if you're one of those 20 tabs type of person, you'll be more than fine. And if we're talking real use case, this is going to be a beast when it comes to productivity and content consumption. And coming down to connectivity, it's rather basic like I mentioned. You have the 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, the Type-C port for power delivery, and again that headphone jack. The Thunderbolt ports of course will work with any accessories and docks you'll need to connect alongside charging. Kudos to LG again for making sure there's one on each side. In my use case, the Thunderbolt port is for docking to my desk setup, which will handle my monitor and all of my peripherals. Typically a laptop like this is meant to be used on the go, but if you are using this in a setup, you'll either want a dock or a dongle to give you back some of the ports if you do need them. And again, with that lack of HDMI, it does mean you will need some sort of dock, a dongle, or some sort of Type-C to display or HDMI cable. And when it comes to peripherals, you could always use wireless mouse and keyboard like myself. And one thing I will say, it's so easy to forget how good audio sounds when you plug directly in with a good set of headphones. Recently, I've been enjoying some old school funk on my Sony XM5s. And when it comes down to the trackpad and keyboard on this laptop, it was actually a pleasant surprise considering the size. The keys on here are actually super tactile and responsive with a good amount of travel. It's also backlit, which is key. And for my numbers junkies out there like myself, there is a numpad. This is absolutely gold for me as an accountant. It's not a large numpad by any means, but it's there. And for the trackpad, it has a nice and tactile click, and it's super responsive as well. These combined are what makes this a good experience overall. A good keyboard and trackpad is definitely key to the user experience. But touching on the battery, since it is a crucial part to any laptop, it's actually surprising how well it performs considering how thin this is. The spec sheet does tell us this is slated for 13 hours of battery life. I was going to test this out to drain it completely, but to be honest, it's pretty unrealistic in my use case since I do have it connected to docks every now and then. But for myself, over the last week, I was able to get 10 hours of battery life approximately, using this for scripting this video, watching media, and even some gaming. I can say easily, if you're after good battery life, this is definitely a laptop you'd want to consider. Now, the microphone and camera on here are definitely usable. I don't think anybody's really expecting studio quality from something so thin and light. You might not be doing voiceovers on here, but for the intended use like lectures and Zoom calls, it works great. Plus, the camera actually works for Windows Hello for instant login. When it comes down to the speaker, this is probably where I'd want to see the most improvement, although it definitely performs better than expected. This laptop has a dual 2-watt setup with Dolby Atmos, which supposedly helps provide a good simulated surround sound experience, and what it lacks in the lows and bass is definitely made up in the volume. 2-watt speakers are physically tiny, but music and media will still sound decent enough. Outside of that, there are some additional features that LG did include with this laptop. The ones that I've used are Glance by Mirametrix and the LG Assistant. The LG Smart Assistant is a quick way to change frequent things like keyboard settings, display or battery settings, alongside choosing activity presets like gaming, or simply OLED display care. There's also Glance by Mirametrix that's based off of detecting your presence. The one that I dig the most is when I get up and walk away, simply my screen locks. If you do need privacy, there are some additional privacy features like blurring your screen if somebody's hovering over your shoulder, or even when you look away. And one of the wellness features I really dig is the 20-20-20 reminder, which is to look 20 feet away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes. My tired millennial eyes can use this a little bit more frequently, no doubt. And quickly to let you know what's in the box, it's actually really basic. We have, of course, the LG Gram itself, the 65-watt power brick, which is actually super tiny considering, and lastly, a nice long Type-C to C cable for charging. So as an entire package, the LG Gram Superslim is definitely a good package, and it's easy to see why the LG Gram lineup has gotten more popular with time. The pure engineering and portability behind it is simply stellar. Would I want better speakers and an HDMI port? Sure I would, but that would definitely compromise the uniqueness of being so light and thin. But let me know what you guys think about the LG Gram Superslim down below in the comments. Appreciate you guys watching till the end. Till next time.